Even on such a small table, it really is a struggle in table tennis to cover every shot your opponent fires your way. If only we could get into the mind of the person standing in front of us. But you know what? Even though we might not be able to do that, there are still a few tricks up our sleeve to help us know where the ball's coming. So hello everybody, welcome back. I'm here in Antwerp in the Kilipong hall of my sponsor, and today we're going to look into the question of how do we know where our opponent is going to play. It would be very nice to know, because the irregularity of the sport, I think, is one of the hardest things. If you get somewhat of a control, somewhat of a grasp out of it, it would be much better. It would be an easy way to immediately improve your game. So I have, I think, some guidelines, some tips into how it works, into what you can do to know or to see what your opponent is going to do. And that I will, of course, explain in this video. So first off is the ability to anticipate off of the movement or the direction of your opponent. Sort of seeing if your opponent is telegraphing their shots, meaning that already very much in advance, before they even touch the ball, very often it is quite visible as to where they're playing. And that is especially the case in forehand, because of the swing before the shot. That tells a lot. In backhand you don't really have that so much, also because there's not so much upper body rotation, but with forehand there is, so usually that says a lot about where your opponent is going to play that ball. So unless they're smart, like maybe you are smart and you saw my video on how to not tell your opponent where you're going to play, then it is quite easy to decipher that and to see where the ball is going. And I think a very good way to practice that already is looking at the racket. Looking at the racket, it may sound quite silly, but it is something which I'm not really paying attention to all of the time, and when I do, it helps a lot. So I think if you practice it by starting out, first of all, in training, when your opponent is blocking and they're blocking you an irregular exercise, look at how the racket angle is, where the racket angle is facing, and if you really look at that, sometimes it is quite easy and much easier, let's say, than otherwise to really guess where the ball is coming. Usually you can really tell a lot from how the racket is standing. So I think that is a very good way to start out practicing it, because yeah, it also translates itself to a lot of different things. So watch if your opponent is telegraphing their shots, and then of course you can see where the ball is going. Second up is the context when you manage to put your opponent in a situation where they are too late, when they are only limited to a certain amount of options. What do I mean with this? Well, I give you a few examples. I already discussed it in a previous video of mine, but if you push very aggressively in the corners, especially in the long backhand, and you caught your opponent by surprise, what is going to happen 99% of the time is that they're going to play a ball that is somewhat diagonal and almost never is going to go down the line. So if you anticipate that well, without even looking at how their swing is, how their shot is, but just based on the pure fact that they're too late, then you can anticipate that, you can set yourself already in position to do something with that ball, to take the counter initiative, to do however you please. Another example is if you receive short to the forehand, or if you are in a game in the rally and you're playing short to forehand, and all of a sudden, well, your opponent is caught by surprise, they're not in position the way they want it to be, then usually, if your opponent is halfway smart, they're not going to try to receive that short anymore. Because if you're too late, it's best to just push long and avoid the consequences of playing a crappy short push, because that just means that the ball will come high and then you can attack. So if somebody is too late, they're usually going to push long, and on top of that, they're usually going to push long diagonal. You see the reoccurring pattern when somebody is too late, the ball is going diagonal. Well, that translates itself into many different contexts, but I'm just going to explain a little bit further this one. After a short forehand, if somebody then pushes along diagonal, well, you can anticipate it. If you're playing somebody, if you're a left-hander, you're playing a right-hander, so somebody who is playing with another playing hand, somebody who does this very well, incredibly well even, is Truls Morregaard. So he pushes long to forehand, short to forehand. The other guy maybe is too late, maybe doesn't want to continue playing short, pushes long diagonal to Morregaard's backhand. And what do you think? Well, Truls is already waiting here, waiting to take the step around, waiting to kill the ball. So that is one option you can use. Of course, you can also use your backhand, but if forehand is more comfortable for you, definitely go ahead. Last up is a concept around the middle. And it is also something that I already discussed in a previous video, but I think it is useful to explain it in this context and also with a better microphone, should you go and watch that video. If you're playing topspin, or even in a passive situation, whatever, when you get a ball in the middle, more often than not, what is going to happen is you're going to play inside out, counter cross. And why counter cross? If you play from the middle, you play a diagonal ball to your opponent, even if they are the same hand as you, the other playing hand as you, doesn't matter. Your forehand, your deep forehand is wide open, completely exposed. That is very tough. It's very tough to recover that ball should it get there. So a lot of people, they avoid that, even if they're on time to play that ball. It's not even when they get out of a tough situation and get that ball last minute and they need to do something with it. No, in general, usually in the middle, people are going to play counter cross. So 1 + 1, if you can anticipate that, as an opponent, you can do so many things with that ball. You can pressurize them a little bit more in the middle. You can expose their corners, expose their weak sides. You can do whatever you want because you anticipated that ball, because you know almost certainly that that ball in the middle is going to go counter cross, because one more time they want to leave their wide forehand covered. They don't want it exposed. So that's why they go there, and that's why you as an opponent can capitalize on that. And that's what you should do. So guys, that was the video. Hope you got something from it. Hope it was useful to you, because like I said, it would be such an ideal world if you knew where the ball was coming more often than not. So I think in this video I gave you a few guidelines, I handed you a few tips. I didn't explain everything. There are some other topics, some other examples, some other match examples which you can use or which you can expose or sort of explain. Like, for example, if you play a backhand diagonal, you can always or almost always expect the ball to come diagonal again, at least if that ball is done with enough quality on which you can step around. That is just one of the many examples there are. I just gave you 3 of them, or at least I gave you 3 sort of methods on how you can know a bit more where the ball is coming. So again, hope you got something from it, and I will see you in the next video.